I'm Everett Curdy, and welcome to this video about the new moon solar eclipse we have coming up on April 19th and 20th of this year. And I think it's really important to come on here and, really get into this because this initiates the eclipse season, because we're going to be having several eclipses this year. Two of them are going to be in the signs that the nodes are in right now, in Taurus and Scorpio, and the other two are going to be in Aries and Libra. So the solar eclipse is going to be happening on April 19th and 20th, depending where you live in the world. We're going to be having a lunar eclipse, a partial lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 5th, and that's going to be about purging and releasing toxic patterns that don't serve you, and so much more. We're going to be having a solar eclipse in Libra on April 14th, and we're going to be looking at our relationship dynamics and what does and doesn't work, because the South Node, which is about releasing and letting go of the baggage of the past, will have moved into Libra, because the nodes are going to change signs in July. So the South Node will be in Libra and the North Node will be in Aries by the time of that particular eclipse on October 14th. And then on October 28th, we're going to be having a partial lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus, and that's going to be a last-ditch eclipse, sort of putting the finishing touches and putting a conclusion on the karmic lessons that we've learned over the past 18 months since, January 2022, January 18th of last year, when the nodes, the South Node moved into Scorpio and the North Node moved into Taurus. So, we'll look at the Taurus themes and, what's going to be going on that time, at around that particular time. And that's going to deal with money, the economy, your values, redefining, security, getting out of your comfort zone if you're, too stuck in it and it's not, working out for you. So many different things that maybe around that time I'll make a video about that and talk about what that all means. This eclipse is occurring at 11:14 p.m. Central Time on April 19th, and then 12:14 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This new moon solar eclipse is very karmic. This is going to set the stage and foreshadow us for the 18 months, about 18 months work that we're going to be doing and lessons that we're going to be learning and themes we're going to be encountering with when the lunar nodes, the South Node and North Node, will be in Aries and Libra. And this is going to be about releasing unhealthy relationship patterns, being overly accommodating, people pleasing, passive, and looking always looking to what the other wants, and unhealthy relationship patterns, or expecting the other person to complete you and fill in the gaps and validate those kinds of things. And the North Node in Aries is about stepping into your authenticity, being unapologetically you, completing yourself and being self-sufficient and really doing what you want and going after your desire and being independent and being a pioneer. So we're working with these two parts of ourselves, and also deals with taking risks. So the more we move toward Aries, the more we're going to be feeling satisfied and like our life is heading in a positive and meaningful direction. And that's really serving us. This eclipse is also a hybrid solar eclipse. It's between a total eclipse and a partial solar eclipse. Now, I'm not going to get into the really complicated astronomy of this, so you can check that out for yourself on, I'll have links that I'll put in the description for you to read about the astronomy of this eclipse, and about eclipses, annual eclipses, hybrid eclipses, solar eclipses. I'll have those links down in the description. This is an annular total eclipse. Talking about the degree, first of all, getting into the degree. This is happening at 29 degrees of Aries. So this degree deals with themes such as urgency. There's, an urgency to change something or to initiate something. Or, feeling like, I just want to do this now. I just want to start this now. I don't want to wait any longer. I just want to get going and, get something off the ground. And, the time is now. No nonsense. I've had enough of this old stuff. It's time to completely stop that and immediately, launch myself into something new. That's how this might feel. So there's an urgency where, you need to do it now, and now we're never kind of feeling. And, the whole thing about waiting and being patient for the new beginning, those feelings may not be as high during, and around this time. And so urgency, transition, because it's the 29th degree of a sign. And so the 29th degree indicates tying up of loose ends of all the lessons that you've had to learn with a particular planet or luminary transiting through that sign. It's growing and evolving and becoming more mature the more it moves from 0 degrees to 29 degrees of sign, because that's how many degrees there are that, of a sign. So when we get to that 29th degree, we're wrapping things up. We're tying up loose ends. We're reflecting and sort of we reap what we've sown of all of the lessons and experiences and issues that we've had to deal with the themes of that planet and that sign. And that house in that area of life. So it's a transition. This can also be, I want to call this eclipse a volatile and intense eclipse to the last degree, and I mean that literally, because it is, and it probably will be. Who knows? I wonder what will be happening with the war in Ukraine, Putin, all those kind of issues, on the political and economic spectrum. I just am very curious to see what will be happening on in that arena, and on the mundane level, world astrology. There's several astrologers who deal with world or mundane astrology. You can go find out, find, those people and, look up this information for that information to find out how this eclipse may impact, world events, global events, and affairs. So, volatility and intensity, there's sort of a it's really hot, there's just a lot of emotions getting stirred, and there may be a lot of really intense emotions like anger, frustration, pressure, stress, and energy and drive and motivation. And it's not wise. I wouldn't recommend sitting on that energy during this time, Aries. It's about getting up and taking action. This is a time where you want to take action toward those things and not sit on that energy. So it's very, intense today. It's very intense. Just imagine a pressure cooker or, um, a tea, um, you know, the, teapot or kettle or, something, and you hear it getting louder and louder as it's, screeching and the pot of boiling water. Could this be when, um, things really come to a head? This eclipse is also dealing with endings too, because it's at 29 degrees of Aries where things come to a head and, the blood is spilt, I guess you could say, and, water, the pot boils over. And making, it's also a good idea to, make sure that your intentions are healthy and that they are, the whole idea of compassion and prosperity. Are these going to impact people in a positive way? Are they going to be destructive? Or are they going to, hurt relationships? Or it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be, aggressive and assertive and, self, centered and self-focused all the time, where you can have those goals and have those, ambitions and have those, desires, but they can also not hurt, your, relationships with others. So this is a degree of strength. There's a lot of, strength with this, degree. Power. It's really, powerful. We can take Aries and, because Aries is ruled by Mars, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and they were having one eclipse occurring in Aries, another eclipse occurring in Scorpio. Both of these are Mars-ruled signs. And the 29th degree is known as the anaretic critical degree in astrology. This can be where you may feel like just suddenly jumping into situations, impulsively acting, and it could be a sudden thrust of momentum and a need to initiate. The 29th degree is also associated with crisis. And maybe it could possibly indicate the shadow sides of that particular sign. It can also deal with, could indicate loss, but who knows? That's more, the lunar eclipse we're going to have. This deals with loss and releasing. We'll get to that. So it points to the shadow sides of the sign, and then it deals with the real need for change. So this eclipse is, where we can plant a seed for karmic new beginnings, huge new beginnings. So this acts as a preview, much like the lunar eclipse that we had on November 19th of 2021. That was a preview into the lunar nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. So that happened, and then January 18th, the nodes changed signs, and so that gave us a preview. This eclipse is going to kind of be, the same thing, but it's going to be different because it's in Aries and not Taurus. You're dealing with the nodes in different signs, and we're dealing with different themes here. So, so this is where you can really feel the courage. Aries is about courage to go after what you desire. And it's about having the bravery and believing yourself to push forward that much more, and to just go there and expand um, and really empower yourself to do something new, to challenge yourself and to have the drive to be who you want to be, and do what you want to do with whatever quest that you're going on, in your life. A wonderful time to launch things, although there could be some delays to that. It's a day later. Mercury is going retrograde in Taurus, so it's a good time to slow down, revise, reflect on that massive, new beginning that you may be setting, And the Mercury retrograde in Taurus is you're going to be, looking back at that and finalizing things. I have another video on Mercury retrograde and Taurus that I did, where you can ground those new ideas and those new goals into reality, and you can make them count. And what is the structure here? How stable is it? How am I going to make this steady? And how am I going to make this long term as well and really solid? Because that's Taurus energy, because it is an Earth sign. And on April 20th, the Sun and Moon are going to move into Taurus, although they're not going to conjunct, even though they could, but they're not going to. The Sun and Moon are just conjuncting right at the very end of Aries. So the Sun and Moon are going to move into Taurus on the 20th of April, and it's going to be a welcoming into Taurus season of this year. But while we're still in that Aries energy, so this is sort of a second chance, where we've had the new moon in Aries at 0 degrees on the 21st of March. But now this is an even bigger new beginning, because it's an eclipse happening. So, now is a sort of second chance, where if you didn't feel like you initiated and got what you wanted off the ground, well, now is a wonderful opportunity to really hit the ground running and launch whatever you want to, and start something new, start fresh. Another theme with this is choosing to be authentic, choosing to be real and, true to yourself. Aries looks at you being truthful to yourself and honest with yourself. It doesn't look for, not being real. It's about, who you want to be, and what kind of message do you want to spread. How do you want to be a role model of expressing yourself, and deals with that concept. And taking action. Aries is a sign that doesn't want to sit on something. It's about acting, having the sort of push and sort of lighting the match for to get it going. It's ruled by Mars, which is the planet of action and movement. Without Mars, where would the action be, and the momentum and stamina to make something happen. And so Mars and Aries provides that for us. Aries initiates the whole zodiac cycle. So it's the first sign of the zodiac. We're getting the ball rolling. And so there could be, again, strong feelings, intensity, and you may find yourself maybe feeling the need to do something impulsive, because, you're not going to tolerate any, being stuck in the same paradigms and that same story. You want to, let that go, and just, go into new beginning. It's just, an inner knowing of what you, want to start. It's just, knowing it's time, and in a sense, it's time to move in a new direction. So being independent, being assertive, standing up for yourself as well, is another theme with Aries. Respecting yourself, being loyal to yourself, putting yourself first in a healthy way, valuing yourself, which is what the North Node in Taurus is about. It's about putting, staying true to what you value. And risk taking. Don't be afraid during this time to take risk, to try something new. So it is the last day of all the planets being direct. Mercury is slowing down, and it's going to go direct on the 21st. It's the last day for all this direct energy. Every single planet's been moving direct since January 22nd. Starting the 21st, we're going to have a Mercury retrograde. And so, I would really encourage you to make the most out of this time. This is sort of an eclipse, sort of, Aries is, go time, and it's, major. And then we're going to be having, the retrograde energies coming in. Pluto retrograde at the very beginning of May is going to add to that. So, and so, it also deals with being honest too. Aries is about honesty, being blunt, direct, and taking direct action toward your goals. And when you do that, you'll benefit, and you will be feeling, like things, matter more, happy and, joyful. And, because since this is North Node eclipse, that's what the North Node is inviting you to do, with all the things I discussed. So eclipses can occur, and they can have major impacts and effects that can last up. They can be life-changing. They can also last up to 6 months until the next eclipse season. Looking at the downsides of Aries to be aware of deals with, aggression, being overly aggressive or pushy, overly selfish, my way or the highway, self-righteous qualities, arrogant, impulsive, domineering or controlling, because it's a cardinal sign. Cardinal signs are about leadership and taking the reins. And it also, Mars is the god of war, and so this could be violent, and maybe there could be more violence, coming about, more discussion on violence, especially maybe, gun violence, since this eclipse is close to Jupiter and it's expanding all those Aries traits. Jupiter's been in Aries since December 20th of last year, so this eclipse is close to Jupiter, so it's helping to bring in, benefits and blessings and expansion and growth. But it could also expand the negative sides of Aries, the shadow sides, and that could be, certainly, guns. Looking at, guns, police, people, and who have those positions of power. And I was seeing, a documentary today about maleness, because Aquarius is male energy, Mars is your male energy, and how manliness can be put in a category of, genders. Men are supposed to be tough and control and all of these things, and when they're, feminine and understanding and intellectually curious and all those kind of things, then maybe in society it's been conditioned into men that may come at a cost of that, those expressing those feminine qualities may be, them being, a weak link, weak links, or something like that. And I'm certainly in 100%, disagreement with, men only being, masculine and all this, expressing those qualities, because there's multiple masculinities, and I think that it was kind of narrow, in how it portrayed men as acting and committing a lot of crimes, and more crimes than women, and it went through a lot. But that could be an important topic of conversation here. So the Aries can result in violence and also rage, and then emotionally destructive behavior hurting others. Even though this is an Aries solar eclipse, this is happening on the cusp of power between Aries and Taurus. So someone who's really willful, wants to be in control, wants to dominate, and is very stubborn and fixed in their point of view. Very powerful and can take on the lead. But there's also the shadow sides of that. And so this is sort of a scorpionic eclipse in a way. Um, and again, Aries can be emotionally destructive and hurting others. And that's where Libra comes into the mix of, let's, collaborate. There's teamwork that exists. Let's, find peace and balance. And let's consider the perspective of others. And, let's be open-minded. And don't forget that balance. So, yeah. Now, the aspects to this, huge reason why this is so profound is because the sun and moon, they're squaring Pluto. Now, this is another out of sign aspect. Pluto looks at depth, intensity, destruction, rebirth of what doesn't serve us. And it can look at empowerment and moving on to a new path of, radical transformation. With Pluto, it brings things to light. It digs up the secrets of things. And Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius, very early degree of Aquarius at the time of this eclipse. So even though it's at 0 degrees of Aquarius, the math still lines up where the sun and moon in Aries are squaring the Pluto. So the sun and moon at 29 of Aries is squaring Pluto at 0 of Aquarius. So this lends itself, with the moon square Pluto, to destructive or compulsive habits that need to be released. And it may be very uncomfortable. You may be holding on to the past of, I don't want to, let this go. Even though there's an inner knowing of, I, need to, do something new and, release this and step into the unknown and be willing to be uncomfortable. There is a need to be holding on to the way that it was and holding on to the past because it's comfortable, it's known, it's familiar, and it's what you're used to, even though deep down that it's not right for you. And Sun squaring Pluto could be, feelings of intense emotions where you want to physically, verbally express those emotions, but because it's a square, there may be difficulty with expressing those intense emotions. And it's not about suppressing the emotions, but it's about allowing the feelings to be present within you, allowing them to be there, allowing those intense feelings, that they do show up. I'm not saying that they will, but if they do, allowing them to be present inside of you. Don't, push them, shove them away. The way Pluto works is whatever you resist persists. And if you are pushing things down, resisting, not willing to face those demons, not willing to look at the, skeleton in your closet and go down to the basement and face your shadows, it digs up the truth and it has you look at what is really going on and what is the truth. And Pluto is going to have you look at that and face that one way or another, whether you want it or not, it is going to be an energy where it's going to bring these kind of circumstances where you have to let something go, and it may be difficult. There may be a tension and an internal psychological battle where one part of you feels the yearning and the need to move in these new directions, and the other part of you is resistant. It is about being willing to move in the new directions, let something go, in order to move forward in your life, in order to evolve. And another thing is just allowing the feelings to be there. This could also be power struggles. With Moon squaring Pluto could show up. Abuse, manipulation, jealousy, those kinds of things. Where have you been, used, or if someone's looking at the person's motives and saying that their motives are not positive, or they're ulterior, or they're dark, or what are the person's intentions behind what they want from you, and what are their true motives when they're interacting with you? Is it to get to know you on a deeper level, to help you grow, to better you, to connect with you on a deeper level, or to put you in greater harm, or hinder you, especially because it's Aries and stuff, expressing yourself, being true to yourself. And are they, is it dark? Is it an unhealthy kind of relationship, where it's just not going to serve you anymore? So the high road of this can be, again, evolution, transformation, and the sun squaring Pluto. This can be power struggles, or not being allowed to express your individuality because the sun, you're the sun of your, life, and all the planets revolve around the sun. And there may be difficulties with feeling like you're not able to express yourself, or feeling like you have a tremendous amount of power, and you're sort of dimming that light, dimming that power, because it's so intense and there's such a depth there. There could also be feelings of ambition and strength to achieve a goal and go after something. Pluto can be, focus, and you're intensely focusing on a goal, and you're, going toward that. Pluto rules Scorpio, which is a fixed sign. Once they latch on to a desire, there's no stopping them. They're going to do whatever it takes and give it all they got. And there could also be feelings of, the need to be in control, like you are in control. This could also indicate a transformation to your identity, where you're, changing who you are and how you're putting yourself out there in some way. And this can be an opportunity, a healing opportunity, if there's any wounds, about shining your unique light. And if there's any wounds based off of past conditioning where you were not allowed to, be yourself, stand out, and be authentic. And of course, we had the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction on March 12th of this year. I have a video about that. And then, Jupiter and Chiron, they're both in Aries. And so it's definitely, looking at those wounds. And then also around this time, we have Mercury in its Mercury retrograde season. Throughout the Mercury retrograde season, which was from April 7th of this year to the end of May of this year, and so Mercury is conjunct Uranus. So this can be about innovative forward thinking. You have these genius original ideas that you want to implement. You're open to new um, schools of thought, new wavelengths, new perspectives. Meeting people from different backgrounds, learning from them. There's new information, there's new angles to look at things. Um, Radical new ideas, flashes of insight, flashes of truth, where you see truth um, of what has to change, of what you want to change, and just truth and information coming out in general, especially the Mercury retrograde season, which is about reevaluating, reflecting, and learning those lessons, and learning certain lessons. Um, Sudden truths also, and realizations coming to the forefront. This is also a great time to try something new, to have an ingenious idea. You know what? I'm going to go after that. I'm going to try something, especially if it relates to writing, communications, maybe, communication on technology, maybe, on social media, or launching a podcast, or starting a YouTube channel or something. When it comes to communication, so trying something new that's out of the box, that is, your own idea, experimentation, freedom, and breaking out of your routines as well. Um, and um, and so this is a great time, when Mercury aligns with Uranus, to chase down the new and exciting, to learn new things, to learn about something, like sciencey, or something like astrology, or something like that, and to really, engage your mind and expand your mind in, a new subject matter, or something new. Learn something new. And also with Mercury conjunct Uranus, there could be unexpected news that may come about around the time of the conjunction. So be aware of that, however it impacts you in your life and the particular life area in your chart. There could be unexpected truths or news that comes about. Pluto in Aquarius is sort of squaring the lunar nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, which is time to really transform, evolve, grow, where you're moving towards your destiny. And it's sort of propelling you into um, changing, and, again, moving into the, new beginnings. Now, on the 20th of April, because of the synchronicity of events happening that line up so well with, in history, and this may be controversial, I'm aware of that, but, Adolf Hitler, if you consider what happened in history and sort of the charismatic authority that he portrayed with his, speeches, and you can feel the passion and intensity, and the, shouting, and, enthusiasm, and, energy in his voice, and the kinds of, just listen to one of those speeches and you can feel that passion, even if it was not for the greater good. That emotional intensity and that urgency of it needs to happen now, with the Plutonian themes that I was discussing, all of that, and it being an eclipse. All these things sort of come together, and if you study, World War II, and Adolf Hitler, then all that come really ties in to all this information that I'm talking to you about here on this video. Really ties in very well. Sort of where there's a lot of similarities, and you can see how the themes of this eclipse tie into that historical connection. And it's certainly a negative and destructive example of Scorpio energy, but also Aries energy. So that is the video on this particular eclipse. I'll hopefully do another video on the lunar eclipse coming up on May 5th, which will be in Scorpio. Thank you for watching. Oh my goodness, this was long. Hopefully you enjoyed it.